Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here. Hope everybody is having a great start to your week. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm here to talk about some things that are extremely important to me. If you followed me for any stretch of time, you know that I am passionate about Black issues and Black affairs, especially here in the U.S. That I am unapologetically Black. It doesn't mean that I don't do business outside of my race. If I didn't, I probably would have sunk a long time ago. But what I focus on and what I refuse to relent on is speaking truth to power about where we are, what we've been through, what we're going through, and what we have to do. There's a combination and a dynamic that we must embrace if we're ever going to experience power. It's not enough to know the history. It's not enough to talk about the history. It's not enough to understand the machinations and the mechanisms at play that move against us. It's not enough to talk about education. There has to be education. Education isn't simply academic achievement, accomplishment. It's everything that empowers and prepares. And we aren't there. I've written about that in a number of my books. We aren't there. We are too busy trying to fit in. We're too busy trying to get along. We're too busy trying to find a space in what they define as success to ever truly embrace power. One of the number one and most primitive elements and components of power is individualism and the right to choose, the right to be in the space that you decide to be in without having to acquiesce to someone else. If you don't have that, you don't have power. If you need somebody's permission, you don't have power. That's why I am real big on entrepreneurship. Yeah, you're going to always have to be responsible and accountable to somebody. That's called life. But being in a situation where you need permission to do something, first of all, you need permission to even work for them. Then you need permission to do everything that you want to do. And then you have to have it signed off on, even if it comes down to having to leave to go do something. That's not power. Sitting up and begging politicians to do things for you isn't power. But we're going to talk about that. The biggest thing I want to do is, first of all, remind you, we are still in the middle of a fundraiser for Black Men Lead. We definitely did not hit the goal we set for last week, but we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to push. We're going to continue to challenge you to understand the importance of creating whole, healthy men. And that starts with properly dealing with building, protecting, isolating, and insulating, as well as properly socializing young Black boys. Until we get that, we're going to have a problem. We cannot advance. We cannot, and I'll say it again, advance without strengthening the Black male population. And you can't wait until they're already damaged, they're already misguided, they're already misled, you can't wait until then. The work is so much harder. You heard me say this before, quoting Frederick Douglass. Look, it's so much easier to build strong children than it is to heal and repair broken men. That is so true. But we're going to have to get on our game. We're going to have to be willing to be invested in what it takes. We're going to have to acknowledge that we can't just talk about it. We can't just sit up and watch and share videos. We're going to have to get invested. We're going to have to actually execute the programs that are available while researching and studying and building stronger and better programs. It's that simple. And in trying to get around it and doing everything else is only prolonging the agony of where we're at as a people. That also, before I get started, look, hey, dropping this week, in a day or two, getting everything finalized. We're dropping book number 25, The War on Black Wealth, Breaking the Code. I'm going to be talking to you about the different things that we have to do in order to develop a strength. And I'm going to talk about all this in what I'm talking about today, too. There is no power without wealth. Wealth is power in a capitalist world. You are not going to have power because you can speak loud. You're not going to have power solely because you have talent. You're not going to have power because of who you vote for. You're going to have power because you have the ability to move money in a way that can impact other people that you need to do what they can do. If you can't impact them economically, financially, if you're not going to have any power. Power has to be something that can be executed, carried out, and levied. We don't have power because we have refused to build power. But that starts with the ability to change the way we look at money, change the way we look at wealth, change the way we look at society as a whole. And I confront all of that in this book, along with chapter after chapter of things you can do right now in your life to change your financial situation. With that out of the way, let's get the first thing out of the way. Roland Martin. And he's not the only one, but he's the one that just keeps seeming to hang around and not get the picture. I saw an article shared by one of my partners and friends, Nyota Ura, who is the brilliant mind behind Alt Black News and Alt Black Media, has been a very instrumental force in my development online and what I've been able to do. And I saw something that was shared, and it was about certain white racial caste media entities acknowledging Roland Martin as being a part of the new Black media movement. And it's important to me, not because of anything personal, but just the idea of what I've seen from Roland Martin, and I've seen from other people like him, who are literally being used by primarily the Democrats, but by the system in general, to be buffers, to be miseducators, to be the bearers of misinformation, to present things in a light that serves certain other people's interests. Anytime I see that, I know what's coming. We've seen it with Black Lives Matter. We've seen it with all of the things coming from these guys sitting in these seats in these booths at CNN, MBNs, CNBC, and Television One, and all these other places that they've popped up. And they've had a narrative that we have to depend on the left. We have to trust the left because the right is racist. Well, no. When we're talking about the right wing and the left wing, the first thing we have to understand is those wings belong to one bird. That bird is using those wings to move in a particular direction, and they each do a different thing in order to accomplish that. But the ultimate goal is the same, to shit on us. That bird has been shitting on us from day one. It doesn't matter if it's coming from the Republicans, and it doesn't matter that it's coming from the Democrats. What I do find interesting, though, is that the vast majority of Blacks are Christians. And what's crazy is the left, the Democrats, tend to embrace philosophies and ideas, concepts, principles that are diametrically opposed to the Christian faith. And yet you still have this mass support of this group that in essence moves against the very nature of God in your life. I'm not arguing whether you should be Christian or whether you should be Democrat, whatever. What I'm telling you is you have to kind of make it make sense. If I'm going to sit up and say the most important thing in my life to me is God, and that I'm moving in a way that's directly aligned with God, then that means I got to be directly aligned with anything I do. But it's amazing how powerful the media is. It's amazing how powerful the idea of patriotism is. It's amazing how powerful the idea that they're racist and we're not. We are for you, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. The deindustrialization of the inner city, which was the mechanism through which Black men were able to get employed even when they were uneducated and support their families, that took place under the covering of a Democratic administration, the Johnson administration. All the social programs that enter the community that tend to follow behind that to underwrite the commodification of the Black man and the marginalization of the Black man also came from a Democratic. The most devastating crime bill ever written that is still having a devastating impact was not only written under a Democratic administration. The person who wrote the bill is not a president of the United States. Look, let me tell you something. I am not Republican. I am not Democrat. I am for my people. And what I am for is being able to look and see and recognize the truth and be able to examine it and understand how that truth impacts me and what I need to do to operate to move myself and my family and the people that I care about into a better situation. When I look at people like Roland Martin, what they are doing is moving for the power structure that underwrote them, the Dems. The speaking points of the Dems, it's all pointing back. The Republicans are going to destroy you and the Democrats are going to save you. We've been hearing that for 60 years and we've put them in office multiple times and they have not done anything. We still have the same level of home ownership we had as in the 1960s, around 40, 41%. We have not closed the wealth gap. As a matter of fact, the wealth gap is widening. Well, a part of that is the fact that 1.5 million Black men are missing, and we are an integral part of the development and the building of generational wealth, the building of generational prosperity, the building of generational power has to also include the Black man. We are consistently being alienated. Now we are in a situation where we are being pushed in dispute against our very own being, because without the Black woman, we don't exist, and without us, they don't exist. But now we are at war with one another because they told us that we are one another's problems. Are there problems? Are there things that we need to work on? Are there things we need to improve on? Well, obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about Black men lead if Black men had it all together. That wouldn't be Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters and a bunch of other programs out there if Black women had it all together. So, but what happens is if we can convince ourselves that it's all on them, and then we get sensitive into our feelings that we can't have a conversation, because just the idea of the other side saying that something was wrong with the other side, we can't acknowledge it. A person can't even acknowledge that they were hurt by someone without everybody getting defensive and saying, it's not an accident. But when I look at Roland Martin, he does not represent New Black media. New Black media is out there, and we're not in the normal places. The television programs aren't producing what they used to. The strongholds and pushes are now on social media, Instagram, YouTube, and even Facebook, and in independent websites and newly developed platforms, all the things that we are actually working on at Alt Black Media, working also with another brother at Admit One that has brought me on as a resident expert to confront issues that we deal with on a daily basis. And that's where we're going to wage the war. That's where we're going to win. If you go to altblacknews.com and you check out that is specific truth being produced without it being weighted politically. It's about exactly what's happening. One of the first people to ring the alarm with the BLM thing during Ferguson was Nyota Ura and Darren Seals, who were working closely together. Darren lost his life to sit up and expose that. People didn't want to hear it. People jumped on it. They sucked millions of dollars out of the funnel of the Black community that was being funneled into a real life movement, a real life changer. And it was because of issues and situations like this where we say, hey, we are for something. We come in and we're not really for it. We come in and we cipher away the power, we cipher away the momentum, we cipher away the financing, and then we move on and go do something else. Now we're sitting up and seeing all these things pop up about the homes they bought with that money, about the cars, all that. They funded their dreams by sucking the life out of our movements. And it's time that we stop that. It's time that we call a spade a spade. It's time that we sit up and look at it for what it really is. How much are you looking into the true elements, components, mechanisms, and machinations of what has created the Black reality today? Let's go all the way back. And that's what I do in this book. I go all the way back to Reconstruction, Black codes, convict leasing, sharecropping, redlining, urban renewal, benign neglect, gentrification, mass incarceration, miseducation, all these things that are just consistently being thrown at us to take us away from what we should be doing. And then when we do get it, they come and disrupt it. And we look at it and we're sitting up, and there's a reason why the white median household wealth is 177,000 and the black is 17,000. There's a reason. It's not because we're dumb. It's not because we don't work hard. It's not because we can't develop a mentality around money. It's because we're constantly being misdirected, and they're constantly resetting the rules, resetting the guidelines, and they're using people like Roland Martin to do it. Am I sitting up and saying that we don't have culpability in where we're at? Absolutely. Our consumer mindset is highly destructive. Our desires to fit in and be accepted within the confines of mainstream society has hurt us big, because this society and its laws, its principles, its processes, its policies are designed to support a white racial caste system. We're not white. We're not European. There's a difference in how we're made. It's a difference in how we move. It's the difference in the way we see relationships. All of these things matter when you're trying to develop a foundation on which you're going to stand. We got to be very careful about that. That's where I'm going to leave that at, and I'm going to touch on it some more because it's really important that we get that. So I'm going to do some more on that. But I want to talk about now is the need for strong Black men in the Black community and why it's so important. Why is what I do in the community with Black men lead with the Rite of Passage Initiative for young boys and the mentoring program for the older adolescent boys and young adult males. Why is it important? You have to understand the dynamic of social development, of strengthening and building any group or any people, especially in a patriarchal society where men hold the power. You cannot advance a race. You cannot advance an enclave. You cannot advance a group of people without having that. That's why it's so important to support what we're doing. But let's talk about something. I'm going to tell you, the one thing I love about social media is this. It has created the ability to conduct survey after survey, study after study, observation after observation, without having to go around the normal rooms of finding major contributors to support you still have time. My time is extremely valuable. I run a company, and when I'm not spending time running that company and building and developing in that company and servicing my clients in that company, I'm not making money, because I definitely don't make money in what I do in the Black community, but it has to be done. But if I'm going to do it, I want to cut the cost, and research is costly. But I can go online and I can just sit up and make one post, sit back and observe it, and I can watch the response. It tells me where my people are. I can go in under a guise and post in a white environment, and they tell me exactly how they think, what they're doing, how they're operating. It'd be amazed at how much information is being exchanged on the internet, and you're unaware of it because you're not seeking it. No one's giving it to you, or they're giving it to you in a way that inflames, incites, disrupts, misguides, misleads, and so forth. So when I'm out there, I'm putting it out. I'm trying to find out where we're at as a people. I'm trying to find out how far we have to go. I'm trying to find out what's the best way to reach my people, to be the most impactful that I can be, because my days on this planet is numbered. Well, the one thing I realize is that my days on this planet is numbered. So what does that mean? I've got to find young Black males that I can pour into, young Black males that are already on fire. And I've done that. I'm bringing them in. They are the future and representation of who I was on this planet, because I'm going to pour into them. Nobody has to do anything. They're coming to me, and I got them, and I'm going to do. That's the first thing. So that's out of the way. So what's the next thing that needs to be done? The next thing that needs to be done is there has to be a development of a system to empower those who are coming. They need to be trained. They need to be. So I'm looking at some principles and some things that are going on. When I look at why I say we need strong Black men and why I say we're struggling in that area right now, it's first and foremost, we don't even know how to define manhood. We have created such an ambiguous idea of manhood that anybody can look at what they're strong in and decide that's how they're going to define manhood. Well, if I'm making 6 figures or more, I'm a high value man. I get to do what I want. I get to choose what I want. Everybody has to kowtow to me. I'm the dude. Well, there's so much more to being a man than having money. Now, obviously, you need to be a provider. Obviously, you need to be someone who can create an environment and sustain it. And if you go back, especially if you're talking about progeny, because if you go back and you look at an ancient text, the term father is used a lot for God. And you go back in ancient scripture, the term father is used a lot for God. And if you look at ancient Hebrew, or even in the ancient Greek, when you look at father, the term is actually sustainer. It's not just creator, it's sustainer. So anything that a father or a man creates, he sustains. So it's not simply about creating. It's not simply about having something. It's about having an ability to create an environment in which you can sustain all you create and all that you are entrusted with. Because some things you're going to create, other things you're going to draw to you. You draw a wife to you. You create your progeny and offspring, but you're required to be a sustainer. Now, being a sustainer isn't simply about what you have in your bank account. See, being a sustainer is about what you're able to give in addition to that. Are you able to provide a spiritual, emotional, psychological, and physical covering? In other words, are the people that you are responsible for sustaining, are they feeling safe in your presence? Are they feeling safe with your leadership? Are they feeling safe walking behind you? Are you walking in a way that is protecting them from what life is sending at them? Do you give them the space to grow, or are they taking all of the hits with you because you're dodging without a consideration of what's behind you? Sometimes you've got to take the hit. That's part of being a leader. That's part of being a man, but you got to develop that in a man in order for it to be natural. We have a situation now where it's all for themselves and it's everybody for themselves. It's not my fault. They did it. Well, if I'm the leader, if I'm saying I'm the head, if I'm walking around calling myself a king, then the buck stops with me. I don't get to say the queen did it. I don't get to say that my kids did it. I don't get to say that the people who are looking to me for guidance did it. They may have did it, but they did it under my leadership. You find anybody in America in any point of leadership, whether it's a CEO of a company, a coach of a sports team, and that company or that team is failing, and they get to say, well, no, it was the workers, or no, it was the players. No, they're the first to go. Why? You're the leadership. There's a responsibility that comes with leadership. And until we start to understand that, we're going to have problems. And that's the thing that I'm trying to get across when I'm talking about Black men lead. Because why? What we're doing is we're teaching them principles. We're teaching them principles. Number one principle: a Black man does not cause harm to a Black woman. Number two principle: a Black man makes his own way. He builds for himself. He understands the importance of owning. And we teaching. Why? Because if I steal it, and what I'm doing is I'm giving them purpose. One of the biggest problems that I find with young teens that I work with is that they have no sense of identity. They have no sense of purpose. There's a yearning, a natural yearning that comes with their physical maturation that puts them in a situation where they are reaching out. And trying to discover who they are, but they don't know because nobody's told them. So you got to let them know that they have a place, that they belong, because that's the natural yearning of a man. A man needs to be respected and needed before he needs to be loved. As a matter of fact, the way you love a man is through respect. But when I can't even define respect, I don't know how it feels. I just know what it is. So what most of them have done, they have interpreted fear as respect. Because somebody fears me, they respect me. No, they're afraid of you. That makes them a threat to you. You don't want people to be afraid of you. You want people to respect you. When they respect you, they will trust you. They will trust you. We have so much work to do in that area. But here's the thing I was going to get at, and why I actually brought this up today. So I'm doing this litmus test thing I do where I'm observing, I'm posting, and I'm observing. And the beautiful thing I like about Facebook is that you can literally download all of your data from Facebook. I do it probably every 3 months. I download all my data and I delete the last version of it because I have new data. I can go back and open that stuff up and I can look at all this, and I've got all this information that I can compile, I can categorize, and I can understand. It's a beautiful thing when you know what you're doing. But check this out. I made a simple post yesterday that we need to return to a time when men checked men for not being men. And it was something I saw somewhere else. I was like, man, I like it. I checked it and it went off. Obviously, you can imagine that Black women are going, yes, yes, yes. Older Black men who are being honest, yes, yes, yes. But Black men under a certain age, Check for what? Because we're not used to being held accountable. You know why? We're in a society where everything says it's not my fault. It's not my business. That's not my problem. So nobody owns anything except what immediately belongs to them and what they are immediately affected by. We don't get upset about something until it lands on our doorstep, and then it's a problem. Now we want people to help us, but we haven't been involved in helping others. It's a problem. But what happens is the amount of men under a certain age that felt like nobody had a right to tell them anything. But the problem is you're not just engaging with yourself. See, you're going to be the guy that's going to meet my daughter. You're going to have sons that are going to meet my granddaughters. So yeah, if I see you doing some things, because I understand that we don't live in an isolated world, that as humans, we are mammals. As mammals, we are social creatures. As social creatures, we depend upon one another for the greatest form of our success. Operating on an individual mindset does not prove the greatest results. In the Serengeti and the savannah, the lion is the apex predator, and yet they hunt in a pride. Why? There's more into the makeup of that pride. The women actually do the vast majority of the hunting. The lioness does. The male lion is there to protect and make sure nothing bothers the lioness. Now, when necessary, if something big comes along and they need help taking it down, that lion will move. But his job is to destroy anything that threatens the pride. There's a social understanding of the hierarchy. You violate the social understanding, you can get killed by your own. But there's a code, and it's ingrained in the DNA of the species. We've had our DNAs interrupted so much in so many different ways, we don't even understand how. We've been told that, you know, your DNA is your DNA and nothing changes. I can tell you from the study of epigenetics and understanding multi-generational transmission of trauma, which I've written about in several books, I can tell you that your environment can very well impact your DNA. There's an upper level epigenetics that tells me that depending on the environment you're in, I can dictate or not dictate, but I can predict your risk of getting sick with different illnesses, depending upon what you go through as a child. These things called childhood adverse experiences. I can tell you, you're going to be 12 times more likely to attempt suicide. You're going to be 4 times more likely to develop ischemic heart disease. You're going to be 6 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. I can tell you all of these things because I now understand that your environment can impact your DNA. So what we used to be, we're not. And we've had 400 years of this interruption, this cascade of complex traumatic experiences over 400 years that have shaped who we are and how we move. We've had the same amount of time to have these psychological interjections or interpolations of ideas about ourselves and about our white counterparts. We have been conditioned to believe that their ice is colder. We have been conditioned to believe that they're naturally more intelligent. We have been conditioned to believe that their definitions of class, their definitions of success, their definitions of beauty carry more weight than who we are naturally, and we aspire to it to the point of our own detriment. That's a problem. We need strong men because strong men set the barrier. We need strong men because strong men toe the line. We need strong men because when that line is drawn and anybody crosses it, there's a consequence. It has to be a message sent that you do not in any way harm anything or anyone within our reach, within our protection, within our covering. It has to be sent. There has to be a message that no one, that means even those on the inside of our community, are not allowed to harm those in the community. There has to be a code. There has to be a code and a message sent out to those outside. You come in here, you cause a problem, we can't guarantee you're leaving. There has to be consequences to harming us. First and foremost, that can only be sent by strong Black men who are willing to step out front, not only say it, but live it. The one thing I can say with certainty and pride, no matter what has happened in the past, the one thing that everyone in my house will have to admit is they were safe under my covering. Because there's no limit that I am not willing to go to ensure their safety, including me dying. That has to be the mindset. Now, I can't be a good protector if I'm the one causing harm. We need strong Black men. We need to build. It's simple. We need to build from the beginning. We can't wait until they get old. I'm telling you, it's so much work working with these young boys because they've been conditioned to see things a completely different way. And they don't really see you, and they're not trying to see you. And you've got to prove your authenticity and genuineness so much before you can even get an audience with them. And then you got to walk them out of something that's ingrained inside of their mind. It's been inculcated into the deepest recesses of their psyche. And you're going to have to literally pick and pluck and pull and reestablish its work. Whereas you can take the pliable mind of a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old and walk them through their childhood into puberty, into adolescence, and you can literally build men. Men who know what it means to be leaders, to be owners, to be protectors, to be providers, to be priests in their homes, to be promoters of their wives and children, to be lifters and edifiers, to be supporters of their brothers. All of these are things that we're going to need if we're going to actually walk into this empowerment thing we keep talking about and not moving toward. I told you a long time ago when I first hit social media, I'm not here for the likes. Nothing wrong with them. I appreciate it. More likes I get, the more people get to hear the message. I'm not here for the shares and the viral content. Although I appreciate it, because again, the more people that share it, the more people that subscribe, the more people hear the message. I'm not here for approval or to be liked. I'm here to tell the truth. I'm here to bring everything I have. And when I realize that I may have been a little off or I misspoke, I'll come back and I'll let you know and I'll apologize. I don't know it all, but I can tell you I put 30 plus years into knowing what I do know, and I've mastered a whole lot of it. And I have used it to help people, and I can help a whole lot more. What I'm telling you is I don't tell you things that I think. I tell you things that I've taken time to learn and know. And I can tell you that until we master the part about socialization and socializing our young Black boys, we're going to have problems because they are being misled. They are being misguided. They are being mishandled. That's our responsibility to do something about it. That's why I created Black Men Lead, because I discovered in my research that proper socialization reduces their risk of dropping out of school, which reduces their risk of being incarcerated, which increases their risk of being business owners. It increases their risk of being effective and productive men in the community, especially as husbands and fathers. We need to restore the Black family. That's the institution through which we build and perpetuate our values, our interests, and our principles as it pertains to us as a people. If we don't have these structures in place, it's real hard to do because it was meant to be done within a social construct where you have both masculine and feminine energy. We are working against ourselves, trying to prove a point that after it's proven brings nothing. There's no intrinsic value in winning an argument. Where there is intrinsic value is in taking the knowledge you have and building something with it, taking the knowledge you have and healing something with it, taking the knowledge you have and growing something with it. That's where the power lies. We need strong men. We need healed men. We need mental health resources, wraparound services for jobs and skill training. We need all of those things. I'm challenging anyone who really wants to see something happen, to build, to grow, to become strong. Support the work we're doing. The link is in the description box. If you haven't gotten the book, or if you haven't ordered the book, it's coming out this week. It's going out. You want this book. This is a trip down the annals of time and history, but it's also a veering into the future of what's possible when we practice the handling of money the right way. Do you realize that where every other community, the dollar is bouncing at least 6 or 7 times, and in places like the Jewish community, Asian community, into the teens, And yet in the Black community, it is literally gone within the first 5 to 6 hours of it hitting your bank account in direct deposit or you cashing your check. One of the reasons is they have all the businesses in the community, your nail shops, your liquor stores, all the places you're going to hit to celebrate your check and the money hitting. You're going to need some gas, Arabs own it. You're going to need some liquor, Arabs own it. You're going to need your clothes dropped off at the cleaners, Asians own it. You're going to need your nails and your hair done, Asians done it. The only thing that we are owning in that are the beauty salons. I wonder how long before they take over those. We are losing because we don't understand how things work. I have been saying that for decades. We are literally losing because we don't know how things work, and we won't find things that we see they work and get behind them. I can tell you with 100% certainty that socializing young Black boys into Black manhood works. And we need it so desperately because the young boys that are growing up now are going to be the ones chasing our daughters. Just something to think about. On that note, look, I'm going to get ready to get out of here. Thank you guys for stopping in. Again, I hope you support what we're doing. I hope that you get the book, but we need to get involved. That's for sure. On that note, I'm checking out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.